All right, folks, we are all duly assembled this evening on August the 13th, 2013 for our regularly scheduled Greer City Council meeting. Having called the meeting to order, I'd like to ask Councilwoman Judy Albert if she would pronounce our invocation this evening, please.
Okay, let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight with great hearts for this day that you've given us. We praise you for the many blessings that you have bestowed upon us individually, as a city, and as a nation. We pray, dear Lord, that you will remain with us here in our nation, that you will strengthen us and guide us and direct us in the way that you would have us go. May we always be obedient to what you would have us do. May we seek to do the right thing, always in your will, and may your will be done and not ours. In your name we do pray. Amen.
Amen. Ms. Duncan, do we have anybody to appear in public forum this evening?
No, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. With that, then, we'll move to the minutes of the council meeting from July 23rd. I'll entertain a motion that they be received.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any items of note for the clerk this evening? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, this evening we'll have a presentation by Kirsten Presley, who is our court administrator, as she brings us her annual report in regards to the activities up the road at the courthouse. And so, Ms. Presley, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. It's my privilege to come before you tonight to present the annual municipal court report for 2012-2013. As the judicial arm of the City of Greer, the Greer Municipal Court is responsible for the administration of justice. Our efficient and courteous staff serves the public with integrity, professionalism, and respect. We diligently hold ourselves to a higher standard of excellence, preserving public trust while at all times adhering to the South Carolina Code of Laws and all policies and procedures set forth by South Carolina Court Administration. We are dedicated to the public while always striving to exceed expectations. Our hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, which is open to the public. 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. we're closed to the public, but there's a ministerial recorder on duty that's there to issue any warrants or search warrants, hold arraignments, or allow any defendants to be bonded out or sign paperwork from being released earlier that day. Saturdays, 9 a.m. to noon, 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. we're closed to the public, but again, a ministerial recorder is on duty. The arraignments Monday through Saturday are at minimum held at 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. On Sundays, we have a ministerial recorder on duty from 9 a.m. to noon and 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. with arraignments held at 10 a.m. and 9 p.m. Our Chief Judge is Henry Mims, who was just reappointed this past June. When he's unable to preside, we have two associate judges that fill in for him, Judge Jim Calmes and Judge Pam Fulbright. Our court is essentially divided into two divisions. One is clerical, one is judicial. In charge of the judicial side are our ministerial recorders. Senior Ministerial Recorder Carol Reynolds, you'll stand. She is in charge of all of the other ministerial recorders. She is our full-time day shift person. We also have a full-time night shift ministerial recorder, who is Terry Murray. We have 3 weekend and holiday ministerial recorders, Lori Floyd, Ed Demko, and Barbara Ferguson. They alternate every 3rd weekend and every 3rd holiday. They also fill in for the full-time employees when they're unable to be at work. Our courtroom and hearing room usage has stayed constant over the last several years. We have traffic court every Wednesday, preliminary hearings 1 day per month, usually the first Friday of the month, and that's with Greenville County General Sessions Court, and they send solicitors over to handle court that day. We have 5 to 6 weeks per year of jury trials. That is moving more towards the 6 weeks a year versus the 5, and in recent years it was 4. So we're starting to accumulate more jury trials and scheduling more terms of trial. Pretrial conferences coincide with the jury trial, so those are 5 to 6 days per year. We hold arraignments a minimum of twice daily. Sometimes these are held in the large courtroom, sometimes in the small hearing room, depending on the types of crimes the defendants have committed, if we have victims or witnesses that want to be present, and if we have the media present, which is becoming more frequent with the types of cases that are coming through. The Department of Motor Vehicles holds administrative hearings for the entire upstate, Monday and Tuesday mornings of every week. We allow them to use our facility, and in turn that keeps our officers in the city because they don't have to travel to these hearings. They just come to our courthouse like any other time. The Spartanburg Alcohol and Drug Abuse Commission uses our hearing room on Wednesdays for random drug testing and to sign up any defendants that have been referred by our court. Greenville County Magistrate Judge Sims uses the courtroom and the hearing room on an average of about 7 days per month. And the courtroom is also occasionally used by the police department for training in citizen classes such as Leadership Greer and Junior Leadership Greer. The majority of the work done by the ministerial recorders is issuing arrest warrants and holding arraignments. There were 1,550 arrest warrants issued this year, which was almost a 30% increase. There was 1,292 arraignments conducted, which was down slightly, almost 4%. Those numbers are not going to be exactly the same because one person may have 20 warrants, but it's counted as one arraignment process. So that's where you get the differential on those two numbers. Search warrants and orders for the production of records is another job that they have. Search warrants are to search a home or a car. It could even be to get blood from someone in a DUI case, those types of things. Your orders for production of records are going to be more of your detectives getting orders for phone records or medical records from a hospital for a case that they have coming up. Those were down this year. There were 65 search warrants issued, which was down around 22%, and orders for records were down about 60% at 25 orders. Achievements, just some of the achievements by our ministerial recorders. We have quarterly in-house training. All have completed the required criminal domestic violence training. Judge Mims and Carol Reynolds attended the South Carolina Summary Court Judges Association training. Lori Floyd and myself attended the annual Municipal Court Administration Association training, where I was the presiding president of the group in the past year. Ed Demko completed the Magistrate Municipal Judge Intensive training. Barbara Ferguson attended the Upstate Judges Association training. Judge Mims attended the annual Judges training at Hickory Knob State Park. We have continuing online safety training. Everyone has completed their security awareness training for the Criminal Justice Information System. This allows them to handle the criminal histories that come from dispatch and to be in compliance with SLED procedures. Barbara, Carol, Lori, and myself attended the Interpersonal Violence Conference in Spartanburg as well. Some of our challenges, and these are continuing challenges. We've had them every year over the past 5, 6, 7 years and see them to continue in the future. One is constant changes in state laws. We're constantly learning the new laws that have to go into effect because we've got to know them before the police department even knows them. New case laws like State versus Ramsey last year, which took the domestic violence charges and shoplifting charges from tickets had to be placed on warrants. Well, they've changed that again this year and they can go back on tickets. So it's different every year. Although this was a slow legislative year, we did have some things that impacted us. Bond procedures are ever evolving, and the changes in county jail procedures are even different than that. Every time we think we have learned how one county wants it, they change it. So we just have learned to go with the flow to make sure they get the paperwork necessary, to make sure our officers have a smooth transition in taking the prisoners to those facilities. There's also been a change in continuing legal education requirements. Instead of 12 hours annually, now we are required to get 14. In addition, there's a required 1 hour of training every 3 years devoted to substance abuse or mental health issues relating to the legal profession. Our clerks division is headed by Suzette Timmons, who is our deputy clerk of court, and we have Connie Hikes, our records clerk, and Colette Patillo and Ann Pitts are our court clerks. Ann Pitts is our most recent addition. She has filled the position that you allowed us to have last year, and I cannot thank you enough. We have a fantastic staff that has really become a great team. Some of the achievements in the clerks division include quarterly clerk training. Suzette attended 2 Municipal Court Administration Association conferences in the spring and the annual meeting in the summer. Colette attended the Spring Municipal Court Administration Association conference. Colette attended a wellness workshop in Greenville as she is part of our wellness committee. Everyone participates in the quarterly online safety training, and that has been really great for us. It's hard for an administrative group to find safety training. It's even harder to get us out as a group to do that. The online safety training has been great because each person can do that individually as time allows in the court. Victim service provider training is required annually for Colette, Suzette, Ann, and Connie, and they are maintaining those hours. All clerical staff also had to complete the security awareness training. And as part of the MCAA Board of Directors, I attended board meetings and meetings for upcoming training sessions during the year. I was chosen to participate in a focus group with the Municipal Association concentrating on concerns of the court. It was organized with legislative liaisons, clerks of court from around the state, and Judge Matt Hawley from Greenville City as we work towards things like changing the expungement laws. This has been a great group that meets periodically to see what we can do to push through some legislation that will help the courts. Court staff assisted at Freedom Blast. We have continuous maintenance of record retention schedules, bench warrants, conditional discharges, PTI files, AEP files, NRVCs, alternative sentencing files, jail files, electronic monitoring files, disposed files, and our alternative sentencing includes payment plans, random drug testing, drug counseling, alcohol counseling, anger management counseling, criminal domestic violence counseling, MAD impact, victim impact panel, GED diploma monitoring of grades if that's part of the sentence, weekend jail time, electronic monitoring, Alive at 25, defensive driving, mental health counseling, and pretty much any other sentence that Judge Mims can come up with. We monitor it and we follow it through to the end. We've also fostered our partnerships between local service provider agencies such as SADAC and Family You Can't Beat Them. We also had a great achievement as we've completed all of the paperwork from prior administration. It took us a few years, but we are completely current on everything and able to move forward now. So that was a huge achievement for us this year. Expungements, my favorite topic. I got to speak about that at my conference last week again. And this is a challenge and achievement. Last year when I came to you, we were somewhat behind and we had a temporary employee that was doing a majority of the work. What we've been able to do now is we no longer have that employee. We've divided the process among 5 of us. The beginning of the process is myself, Colette, Suzette, and Ann. We pull the paperwork, determine eligibility, run criminal histories, prepare orders, and have them signed. As the process continues, the 4 of us continue with removing the names from documents, dockets, destroying the paperwork, documenting all actions, and determining the recipients of those orders. And then the process is completed by me. I approve every single order that goes through. I read it, I review it, I remove it from the computer, I make sure that the copies get to each. There's about 8 different people that potentially get copies of it. I make sure that they get certified copies of it. Then Connie files everything for me, which is under lock and key. And this is a very abbreviated version of what's included in that. But keeping in mind how many we've done and how many that went through my desk this past year, it was 870 that we processed, which was a 3% increase from the prior year. As I said, they're all completely current at this point. We have no backlog of anything. We are completely current in every area. We've been able to divide them, which has made everybody's job a little bit easier. There was, again, some changes in that law on June the 13th of this year. The change affects the type of cases that can be expunged through the pretrial intervention office. Although we don't initiate this process, we still have to do all the work on the back end of it. This has added more cases that qualify, which will add more work, another unfunded mandate through the summary court level. And we cannot collect a dime. It's in law that we cannot collect a dime, not a copy fee, not a printing fee, nothing. But pretrial intervention in Greenville gets $250 for every expungement that they process. And their process is much abbreviated compared to ours. They've also added into the law that anyone that was found not guilty, their charge was not crossed or dismissed, now and they weren't fingerprinted, so they weren't arrested, and an expungement order is a destruction of arrest records, but they are now, that charge has to be removed from any internet-based public record. We are fortunate enough to have the state software, and they have a program that removes that for us automatically at this point. But again, no changes in our favor this year. Challenges on the clerical side continue to be changes in law, changes from South Carolina Court Administration, changes from the county jails, bond paperwork arraignments, and unfunded mandates. This is always a challenge, and I foresee it to continue to be a challenge. Strategic plan. We are completely a reactive department. There's no proactive work that comes from us. So we have very limited opportunities to participate, but we do have a customer service program that we focus on, and we're constantly evaluating that to make sure we continue to improve. And we have a community service program that's very successful in cooperation with the Greer Police Department and Sergeant Richardson. We established this as an alternative sentencing program, and Sergeant Richardson determines the placement of each of these people. Over the past year, we've had 30 defendants complete 1,050 hours, which was a 67% successful completion rate. So we find that to be a very successful program for us. On the horizon, because we are caught up, we actually get to work with some goals now. We are in the process of a written procedure book that will be so that everybody in the office processes everything exactly the same. It will also be our new training manual. We are probably 20 to 30 procedures into this book already. We will have a monthly team building exercise. We are working on establishing online payments which will benefit the public and us, and cross-training clerks in all capacities including the jury trial sessions. Our caseload for this past year did decrease. There was 4,898 cases filed, which was down almost 11%. 5,555 cases were disposed, which was down almost 13%. Bench warrant activity also decreased. 637 bench warrants were issued. 597 bench warrants were disposed of. Again, the lower number of initial cases will have a direct result on this. Our jury trials, however, increased. We have no control over how many of these come in. These are requested by the defendants. It's their right to have one. We do have a large number of these coming in, so that's why we've had to bump our sessions to 6 sessions a year. We've had 267 jury trials scheduled with a completion rate of 83%. That's the highest completion rate we've had since we started tracking this in 07-08. There was a 39.8% increase in the number of scheduled jury trials this year. Preliminary hearings, this is another area that we have no control over. They're defendant requested. It's not an automatic hearing. The person actually has so many days after their arrest to request this. These are for Greenville County General Sessions felony type charges. So we had 264 of those hearings scheduled this year, which was a decrease of 13% from the prior year. Our total money collected was $618,579.12, which was a 21.2% decrease from the prior year. And our revenue was $216,735.16, which was a 19.5% decrease from last year. And I'll be glad to take any questions or entertain any comments.
While Ms. Presley catches her breath, can y'all think of any questions you might have of her?
Very good report. And I'm sure you feel great being caught up with everything.
It's wonderful to be able to move forward.
You said you were caught up with the previous administration, referring to who?
In the court. My predecessor.
I guess.
Things were very behind then.
Not like Nixon or something.
Just another Wilson. Yeah, they were very behind.
Watergate and Greer, huh?
My anticipation was that at the three and a half year point we would have been completely caught up, but that just didn't quite work out like I planned. But we're there now.
Very good.
In regards to the jury trials, I know you know there was an 83% completion or disposal rate on that. That's either that it came to a jury trial or it came to a settlement before
Correct.
the trial began, right?
That's
so we
correct.
disposed of 83% of those cases. The other 17% have been
Continued.
carried over
Right.
or continued at this point.
Right.
What percentage of those cases as they come to jury trial get handled before they ever reach the jury trial portion?
The majority. We schedule somewhere between 50 and 65 jury trials per week.
Mhm.
We may have 2 actually go to trial.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought. All right. Others?
What's the percentage or amount that's tacked on by the state now on fees?
Whatever the fine is that the judge orders, if he says it's $100, then you immediately add 107.5% onto that. And then depending on the charge, if I'll get a $25 law enforcement funding fee, I'll get a $5 criminal justice academy fee. If it's criminal, they get an additional 25% conviction surcharge. If they ask for time to pay, there's a 3% addition to that. If it's drugs, they get $100 more than that. If it's a DUI, there's about a total of about $300 more that goes into that, separated into a couple different funds.
So it could essentially quadruple?
Yeah, easily.
It's shocking when they come up and get their total.
You said during the expungements, who was that you said that was getting paid for the expungements?
The solicitor's office in Greenville, pretrial intervention, which is under the umbrella of the solicitor's office, it is written into law that they get $250 for every expungement that they handle. It is also written into law that we get nothing, but the majority of the work comes from the municipality. Because in general sessions and PTI, they're essentially running a criminal history, they're preparing an order, getting the signatures on the order, and then dispersing it. When it comes to us, we still have the entire process of destroying all of the records. That's the part that's so timely. That can take up to 45 minutes per expungement order.
And they wrote it in the law that we get that the municipalities get zero.
That's exactly right.
Are y'all working on changing that?
We're trying.
Yeah, let us know how that goes.
Yeah.
Others? Great report and as usual, great work. We appreciate all that y'all do on that end, and what a wonderful feeling. I am sure that you've got to stand up here after the last 3 or 4 years just barely keeping your head above water to say that y'all are at a point that you're now beginning to be proactive in some of the things you're doing up there. Congratulations.
Well, and I thank you guys. The addition of the extra clerk at the end of last year has been critical in that. We really do have a great team now that is functioning very, very cohesively.
Great. Speaks well of the management up there. Thank you. Give our regards to the judge as well, too. With that, then, we'll move to the administrator's report. Mr. Driggers?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Registration is underway now. If you do intend to participate with the Municipal Association's regional advocacy meetings, our closest one will be over in Simpsonville on September the 4th. I am registered for that and do plan to represent us as part of that meeting, but I certainly hope that your schedules will allow you to be able to attend that as well. It's an informative time as the State Association begins to frame their legislative agenda for the next year, and that is the starting point for that process. Very much like Ms. Presley was just mentioning, that would be something that we will take to that meeting as well, to say that we would like for the Municipal Association to support promoting the ability to make some changes in that legislation relative to the fees that may be charged by the municipality for the expungements. But I do hope that your schedule will allow you to attend that. Again, it's September the 4th. If there's anything we can do to assist you with that, please let us know. Obviously, with the very, very wet summer, we have the opportunity through our various media sources to see that all of our communities are really struggling with stormwater. But I will say, while we are having our challenges relative to stormwater as well, it is much better than it has been in years past. We are making forward progress relative to stormwater in our community. I commend Don Holloman, our city engineer, and our folks both on the engineering side with stormwater, but also our very capable staff over in the Public Services Department that are being able to get in and make sure that drains are clean and that ditches are open and those types of things. Yes, we do still have some challenges in the community, and there will be some large projects that we must give attention to, but we are making great strides, and this summer has been a wonderful example of that. If we were to compare the rainy season that we've had, the excessive rainy season that we've had this summer to years past, I certainly hope that you're seeing that as well and that you're getting some reflection of that in comments that are being made by your constituents. But please continue to let us know where there are issues and concerns. We want to make sure that we're documenting those and we're trying to address those on a case-by-case basis as we continue to move forward. But I certainly wanted to share that we are making good forward progress in that area. Some things that you'll start to see out and about in the community. We are participating in a program called Turn the Town Teal. In September, we will be celebrating or recognizing the Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. You know, in October we do the Breast Cancer Awareness campaign. We've been asked to participate, and we will be participating with an organization highlighting awareness to ovarian cancer in the month of September. So you'll see a lot of ribbons and placards, and even the fountain out here will turn teal for the month of September. So as you see that, you'll know what's going on with that. As we approach the budget for this year, we indicated that it is a desire for us to give some attention to our Wade Hampton Boulevard corridor. We are making good forward progress with that. We've already had a very productive meeting with Greer CPW relative to street lighting on Wade Hampton Boulevard. In informal conversations that I've had with many of you, you've had some input into that process, and I invite you to continue to do that. We are at the point that we would like to be starting to really make some decision on the type of fixtures that we would be installing on Wade Hampton Boulevard, how they would be placed. Are they black? Are they silver? Are they aluminum? Are they fiberglass relative to the poles? What type of light fixtures? What type of light would we like to see? White light, amber type light, the orange light, high pressure sodium, LED, metal halide. There are a lot of decisions that have to be made in that process as we continue to move forward. But again, we've got great partners at CPW. They've been working very closely with us. But as we continue to move forward, we want to make sure that you are aware that we are working on that program so that your comments, your ideas, your suggestions, your input can be part of that process as well. So please follow up with me. Myself and Don Holloman are working with the folks at Greer CPW on this project. And it's taking legs and moving quickly. So we're very, very glad that we're seeing some forward progress on that as well. Candidate filing ends on Thursday of this week. Some of you are familiar with that, and you know that what's taking place there. But we are making folks aware that at noon on Thursday, that candidate filing ends. The 15th is the end of that. Our staff will be involved, our senior staff will be involved in some staff training and planning on this Thursday and Friday. So if you're trying to reach some of the senior staff, department heads, myself, the assistant, some other folks, we will be involved in a training program here at City Hall on Thursday and then off-site on Friday. But we are reachable. We will be monitoring and checking our cell phones, and also support staff will be transferring messages to us. But I did want you to be aware that we'll be involved in that. It's part of our follow-up to what you do each year. It's part of your strategic planning session as you go through that process, the budget process. We meet very soon after the beginning of the new fiscal year, and from a staff perspective, we take a look at the challenges that we have relative to the work that needs to be done over the next year, and we'll be spending some very concentrated time this Thursday and Friday working on that. So just wanted you to be aware of what that we are doing that again. We always do that on an annual basis after you give us direction, again through your planning meetings and through the budget process. But that's where we'll be this Thursday and Friday. But we'll be doing that here in Greer. Black History Gala is this Friday evening. Mr. Griffin may have some comments that he'd like to make a little bit later relative to that, but certainly we're excited for the opportunity as a community to be hosting that event. It'll be taking place at the Cannon Center this Friday evening, so looking forward to that as well. Our staff works very closely with Mr. Griffin in that program. Glad that we're able to support and sponsor that. Our Citizens Police Academy are now in the process of soliciting applicants for that program. If you have constituents or folks that you know that may be interested in that, it is a 10-week program. It is a very well-run, very well program to inform the community about the inner workings of our police department and what takes place there. We would encourage you to have those folks contact us. There's information on the front page of our website that folks can register for that program as well. But we would encourage people that have an interest, or again, people that you know that you believe might have a particular interest in participating in that program, to let us know what's going on there, and then we can get them signed up. Glad to be able to do that. And the last piece of information that I would have to share with you this evening is a request that we would again be allowed to apply for a SAFER grant for our fire department. We were given permission last year to apply for that grant. We were unsuccessful in being able to obtain the grant last year, but you did allow us to apply for it. We do have the opportunity again this year to apply for that grant. It would be for, again, Chief, it's for 4 personnel. The way that program works is that for the first 2 years of the program, the SAFER grant pays for those resources, and then after that period, we pick up the obligation for the funding for that. As we indicated in the budget process this year, we're trying to strategically do some ramping up as we begin again to look at our long-range planning for the fire department and our long-range needs for additional staffing for a future substation that we would have moving forward. The SAFER grant, we believe, would give us the ability to be prepared earlier for that process. Chief Harvey is with us this evening, has some additional information if you should have any questions, but I would administratively, it would be my intent to make that application based on the approval that we've received prior, but I certainly didn't want to do that if there are any issues or concerns that you would have that maybe we should not consider doing that. So I guess that the position that that would put us in is that, again, administratively, I would proceed with applying for that grant unless directed by council otherwise. But we certainly want to make sure that you are aware of that, and if you have questions or concerns, that we are addressing those as we move forward.
That grant, if you apply for it, are we required, if we are awarded the grant, are you required to accept it?
You are not. You are not required to accept it. Now, but some of the guidelines have changed that they're making it very, very clear to us because, as we will recall, we were awarded a grant 3 years ago. In 2009, we declined the grant, and we've not been successful in receiving the grant since. So I do suspect that there's memory to not accepting those, but we do have the ability that we could decline. But the expectation on their part is that if we do apply, that we would be in a position of accepting the grant. There is the expectation, but there's no legal requirement that we would accept it. Chief?
That's correct. And there's also, in the past, there was a requirement that you had to fund those positions after the grant ran out. If something happened with the economy, of course, now you're not required to keep funding those positions if you're not able to. Our intent, of course, would be to keep the positions on.
Yeah, and very similar to under the COPS program, there was an amendment very similar that they did. Same thing was applied to the SAFER grant as well. The federal government recognizing that there could be financial circumstances at the local level that we would not anticipate as we would apply for this. And so those restrictions are not there as they had been in the past.
Other questions of the administrator or the chief?
So I would be proceeding then to make that application, and we will keep you informed of how we would move forward with that.
Thank you.
Very good, very good. With council's consideration, unfortunately, I do have a number of items that I need to ask your consideration of in executive session. Some of those are very brief, but there will be a couple items that will be a little more lengthy, but it does include 2 individual personnel issues. There are 3 legal matters that I need to brief council on, and 1 contractual matter that I would need to ask council's consideration of how to move forward. So 2 personnel, 3 legal, and 1 contractual that I would be asking of council's consideration in executive session this evening.
Thank you, sir. With that, council will move to items of old business. The first of which is the second and final reading of ordinance number 27-2013. This is an ordinance authorizing the financing of the improvement, extension, and enlargement of the combined utility system of the city of Greer, South Carolina through the borrowing by the city of not exceeding $3.5 million from the South Carolina Public Service Authority, authorizing the execution and delivery of an intergovernmental agreement between the city of Greer and the South Carolina Public Service Authority, and a promissory note from the City of Greer to the South Carolina Public Service Authority in connection therewith, and all other matters related thereto. Heard an explanation of this application for the funding in that regard. Mr. Nick Stegall of the CPW joins us this evening. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any questions or discussion in regards to that? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood.
Yes.
Mr. Griffin.
Yes.
Ms. Bookert.
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Ms. Albert.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Thank you, Council. Second and final reading of ordinance number 28-2013, an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by Eric and Nina Windmeyer located at 1311 South Highway 14 from OD, which is Office District, to C2 Commercial. This comes as a second reading as well. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Questions or discussion in regards to ordinance number 28-2013? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood.
Yes.
Mr. Griffin.
Yes.
Ms. Bookert.
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Ms. Albert.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, and the only item of new business that we have this evening, we do have a development that I think that you will find interesting and hopefully exciting in regards to the Michelin Development Fund. We have Mr. Alan Smith, who of course is the President and CEO of the Greer Chamber of Commerce, as well as Mr. John Tully, who is over the Michelin Development Fund and has fostered this program since its beginning, and is doing a great job with that and helping develop businesses not only throughout the upstate, but in several other areas that Michelin has interests in communities across the country as well too. And so we welcome both of you gentlemen this evening as you come to make a presentation to council. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Council, for giving us the opportunity tonight. As you can imagine, we at the Chamber of Commerce have the ability to interface with the business community on a regular basis, and constantly, in no particular order, the three issues come up, and they're access to networks, in other words, access to relationships that can help people build their business, access to effective marketing, how do I effectively market my business, and then access to capital, how do I gain access to the funds I need to either grow my business or start my business. Three issues we always hear from the business community, and I believe, and I think I can confidently say at the Greater Greer Chamber of Commerce, we've addressed issues 1 and 2. However, we've had some challenges with number 3 for a variety of reasons. Federal regulations now make it a little harder on the banking industry to issue loans. Sometimes a business, for whatever reason, may not have their financial house exactly where it needs to be in order to gain access to capital. But the Michelin Development Fund offers an opportunity. I believe in Greer today that there is a business that wants to grow but can't because it can't gain access to capital. I believe that somewhere there's somebody that wants to start a business in Greer but they can't because they can't gain access to capital. That may be the case up until tonight, and with John Tully and Michelin Development Fund's help and our partnership with them, and hopefully with your support, we can change that for Greer. And I believe we can offer an innovative loan option for businesses that will send a signal that we are serious about attracting, retaining, recruiting businesses to Greer, South Carolina. And with that, I'll turn it over to John Tully, and he'll tell you a little bit about our partnership and Michelin Development Fund. John?
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Mayor and council members. Michelin Development is a job creation program. We focus on startups as well as existing businesses and trying to help create jobs for the community. Right now, Michelin Development Program is focusing on 10 counties of upstate South Carolina. What Alan and I had talked about, and we vetted it with a few people here as well, is we'd like to be able to focus strictly on downtown Greer developments. So what would happen is there would be a certain amount of funds raised that would be put into our program. We would then match that that money and keep it earmarked for only businesses in downtown Greer. Our current program and the parameters may change a bit with this partnership, but currently our loans are up to $50,000. Alan and I are thinking that number would probably come down a little bit depending on how much money was raised and put into the pot. We do not require personal guarantees, but we do secure the loan against business assets, and we also require that the businesses have some form of hard equity already invested in the business. So we look for about 35% of the requested loan amount. Our interest rate right now is prime plus 2, which is pretty attractive rate, and that's pretty much the program. We do have an external steering committee that vets all the applications and actually meets with the clients. We do a lot of the preliminary work. I have a person who works with me. We do a lot of the early preliminary work, helping the clients fill out the applications, make sure they have business plans, we have the financial information we need so that we can bring it to our steering committee and get some sort of a pretty good portfolio together so they can make an informed decision. I have brochures here if anyone would like to see them. Are there any questions?
Council, any questions? I know we're going to get some more information in regards to some updates from our administrator on that, but overview of the program either from Alan or from Mr. Tully.
Mr. Tully, you said for businesses in downtown Greer, is it going to be restricted to that?
City limits. City limits.
Others?
Is there any type of specific business that we're trying to target with this, or is it just wide open?
From our perspective, again, we would modify it to what the needs of this community were, but the current program basically we're open to everything except we look for restaurants to be open for a year, and barbershops, beauty salons, those type of businesses, we look for them to be open for 2 years and make sure they have all the proper certifications. But again, those things can be modified based on what the needs of the community are. That's just based on what our steering committee saw as the needs for the program in all 10 counties. Early on in this particular program started in 2009, and early on we were absolutely inundated with applications. And as a result of that, the steering committee started to see certain patterns and trends that they felt were probably not a good use of the funds initially. Now we've kind of relaxed some of those, and we've opened it up to other ones. But the restaurant business was one we were still particularly concerned about because they have such a high failure rate. So that's why we felt that we wanted to make sure that they had at least a year's experience and get some kind of a financial outlook on how they've been doing in the first year before we made a decision.
I'd like to point out as well that before John and I entered into this partnership, I took the opportunity to meet with members of the local banking community, George Burdett of Greer State Bank, Jack Lucas, BB&T, Ken Harper, and others, to make sure that this wasn't perceived as a threat or some sort of competitive venture with the banks. And they have all said that they welcome this because this gives them the opportunity to not send a client out the door with a rejection, but an alternative. And so the local banking community has been supportive of this as well.
Are there any really great success stories that have come from this since you've started?
Yeah, actually we have quite a number. Just to give you some background, we started the program in 2009 with $1 million. We put a second $1 million in. We've already loaned out about $2,300,000 some odd dollars. So all the repayment money goes back into the program because we want this program to be self-sustaining. We have roughly, we've made 44 loans to 38 different companies, so we have a big variety of clients. Transportation, retail, manufacturing, educational, environment, IT. So we're kind of all over the place. 2 stories come to mind right away. There was a woman in Easley, South Carolina that had worked all her life. Her dream was to open up a hat shop. and her sister had opened a hat shop outside of Baltimore years ago. So when it came time to do this, she retired, and she was a little bit short. She didn't have all the money she needed. So, of course, she went to the banks, and everybody turned her down. This was early 2010, and she found out about our program, came to see us. We helped her with the application, fill it out. Steering committee loved it because they felt this is really what this program is all about. It's not only trying to help a high-tech company, it's also trying to help a small businesswoman. She only needed $10,000, which she got. Made money her first year, made money her second year, made money her third year, and actually paid her loan off 2 years early. She would not have been able to do that without our help. Then at the other end of it, we have a company in Greenville called Savacity, and they're kind of a high-tech company. They're actually in the IT security space, and similar situation, only on a different scale. He had bootstrapped his company. He had hired 2 people and himself, put a lot of sweat equity and actual money into his business. He got to a point that, venture capitalists, equity players, angel investment, nobody really would talk to him because he hadn't hit that level that they needed him to be at. So he came to us, we loaned him $100,000, came back a little bit later and asked for more, and we told him no. We had back then we had a $100,000 limit, and it was a pretty hard limit because we didn't want 1 or 2 companies taking all the money. So then he said, well, could we help him out because he was trying to hire people and he was in a bit of a cash flow position, and he was also buying a lot of equipment. So we gave him an additional 6 months interest only, which helped him tremendously. Last September, he announced that his original projection of jobs were 12 jobs. He had already hired 12 people. He was projecting hiring another 30 people in the next 18 months. And quite honestly, he's doing really, really well. So we have kind of a mix of everything. Pedal Chic is a female-owned bike shop in downtown Greenville. She was just named last year Intobike female bike shop in the whole country, and she's only been open like less than 2 years. Just those kind of things where people just couldn't get the money anyplace else. So we feel pretty proud that we're in a position that we can help these businesses and help them grow and create jobs.
Have you partnered with any other city governments or county governments?
Not yet, but we have talked to other ones about it, and they're kind of in the same stage. I have to give Alan credit for this. This was Alan's idea. This was not me approaching Alan. We're always looking for partnership opportunities. We're partnering with a local CDFI in Greenville, Community Works Carolina, and we just jointly applied for $400,000 from the USDA. They wanted me to become an intermediary lender, but because I'm not a nonprofit, I can't do it. So the Carolina Community Works Carolina is a nonprofit, so we went and jointly made that application, and we just found out 2 weeks ago that we were given that $400,000. So we're working out the details of that. But that's the only true partnership we have right now. But several other communities, as a result of Alan bringing this idea to me, we brought that to them and said, if you have an interest, we know you're trying to develop the downtown corridor. If you think this is something that's appealing, we'd be happy to entertain it. But so far, Greer is the only one.
Is there any type of monitoring or support that you guys provide for the folks that you lend the money to?
Yes, what we do is we require everyone that applies to attend a 2-hour SCORE business basics class. And it's just basically, even for an existing business, to give them a refresher as to what the elements are really needed to start a business. Once a loan is approved, we assign everyone a mentor to work with them. And before we give them the money, we actually do an evaluation of their financial literacy as far as running a business to make sure they have all those skills that we're not giving them money and setting them up for failure. So we kind of monitor and do a lot of stuff up front to help, as opposed to give them the money and then a year later just follow up and see if they're doing okay. So we stayed pretty actively involved. Plus the business expertise support of this program allows them to come to us and ask for a whole array of support that they probably could not afford to get. We have a bicycle wheel company that actually currently has the basic wheel made in Korea and then shipped here, and then the wheels are customized. And these are pretty expensive bike tires. One tire costs more than my bike. So what has happened is they're looking long term, and we've given them help with insurance and marketing and public relations, and because they're the type that they'll ask for it, and they need it and they want it. And they came to us and said, well, we're looking down the road, and we're probably going to need a European distributor. And we'd like to eventually find a manufacturer here in the U.S. that can actually manufacture, because we want them made in the U.S. And they were very fortunate, because we just had our worldwide global logistics person for Michelin, who was here in Greenville. He just retired in June, and he has been working with this company. That's something they could never afford to pay this guy, and it's all free. So that's the kind of stuff that we try and do. We don't impose a lot, except we impose the mentor and making sure that they have the financial literacy, but we make sure that they know that any support they need, they can come to us and get it. Most want marketing help, so we arrange marketing seminars and things like that to help as needed.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may, as a matter of record, what's the ask?
You want to just hand the literature? Just leave it all with us. That'd be fine. Thank you, John.
Well, I think the impact we want to make and the message we want to send, and it's important to say before I make the ask, that John Tully has guaranteed that if the city of Greer, for any particular reason, at any particular time, wanted their entire contribution back, they could have it back. So there's no risk involved whatsoever. So I think $100,000 matched by him would create a $200,000 loan pool, and that's the kind of money that would make the statement we want to make.
Are other entities in the Greer community being asked to contribute to the match program?
The chamber will contribute by the end of the year, and we will be going to other entities and asking for their support as well. The difficult part about that is it's a goodwill gesture. There's not much, I guess, value, if you will, for the contributing partner. The city of Greer is a little unique in that obviously you're in the business of attracting business, but as far as a private sector contributor is concerned, it's a little bit of a tough sell, but we're still going to make the ask if that's what you're asking.
Others? Gentlemen, we do appreciate your time and effort in this regard. This has been an ongoing conversation for some time, and as well as Mr. Tully, I want to acknowledge that Mr. Smith has indeed championed this idea for quite some time in regards to a number of discussions that have been ongoing about how we might assist those that would like the opportunity to do business in Greer, and this appears to be a vehicle that would be able to do that and do it in such a fashion that it would create a revolving loan fund so that it would be self-sustaining and would bring opportunities to those folks that might not otherwise be able to start a business that would not only produce a livelihood for them, but to bring a liveliness to our downtown as well too. And we appreciate the efforts of both of you, and I think we'll certainly have some more discussion about that as we move forward. But thank you for your time tonight. We appreciate it. Council, with that, we have a number of items that we need to consider in executive session. We will need to consider 2 personnel matters, 3 legal matters, and 1 contractual matter in executive session. I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn to executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker. Yes. Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Ms. Albert.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, we stand in executive session. Council, in executive session, we have had a lengthy and often lively discussion, but we have taken no action. Do I hear a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker. Yes. Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Ms. Albert.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, we stand adjourned.